Hello everyone, my name's Andrew Middleton and welcome to this presentation about meeting the Inclusion Manager at the International School, Seychelles. So just very quickly, a little bit about my background. I've been teaching for 13 years. Previously to moving to the Seychelles, I was an assistant head teacher at two different large special schools in Birmingham in the UK. I've got a Master's in Inclusion and Special Needs from the University of Birmingham. I've got a real passion for inclusion and working cooperatively with families, with young people, with staff to maximise the benefits of our learners. And I like to think I've got a good knowledge of different conditions from working in different special schools and how they impact learning, and some ideas for strategies to try and help overcome them. Okay, so here are some recent updates within the inclusion team. Last week was staff preparation week, so I met the nurses and we looked at what's happened with the small extension of the nurses' office, which hopefully gives them a bit more room for when it gets busy. I met with the counsellors and we've been reflecting on the new system we have for reporting safeguarding concerns and trying to make that as good as we can. The secondary staff, we've got a new classroom, which is exciting, and we're looking at the exam support software, which we're hoping to bring in this year so that young people can access their exams a bit better and other assessments. And we continue to try and build an alternative Key Stage 4 pathway that isn't just based on GCSEs. Within the primary department, we've got lots of new staff joining the team, which is exciting, and they're going to have new areas of responsibility rather than working with year groups. The primary inclusion room has moved, which it's now downstairs, which is hopefully going to be better. And another new role within the inclusion team is an attendance officer. So we've just been agreeing the priorities of that role and how we can support young people to be in school as much as possible when attendance can be an issue. The whole school had some inclusion training, so all teachers, all TAs had some training on managing pupils' behaviour, both in the classroom and in the playground, and everyone took part in safeguarding refresher training or safeguarding induction, which just highlights how importantly we take safeguarding at ISS. So I just want to talk to you about the principles of inclusion at ISS. We have a culture of acceptance, diversity and inclusion in all regards. So whether that's as an international school, the wide range of nationalities and backgrounds that we have in our students or in our staff, or the range of needs and strengths that we've got in our student population. We want to remove any factor that might prevent or impede learning, so whether that's to do with the environment or the resources we use or the way that activities are delivered. As a team, we want to make sure that all of our learners are able to learn. We want to avoid pupils having their self-worth diminished. So mental well-being, happiness is very important. If young people don't feel safe and secure at school, they're not going to learn. So that's really important. We want pupils to understand the rights of all people to live freely and without discrimination, both in the school, in their community, and in the wider world when they move on. Okay, so this is going to introduce you to the inclusion staff at ISS. This is the team that I manage as inclusion manager. So I'll go through the various departments. We've got our 2 counsellors and child protection officers, Miss Kate, who works in primary, and Miss Myrna, who works in secondary. In our nursing department, we have Miss Natalie, our head nurse, and new to the school is Miss Annie, as another school nurse. In primary, we have a new primary inclusion coordinator, who is Miss Mary. And then our teachers in primary are Miss Lorna and Miss Annabelle. Mrs. Tenegate is our HLTA for inclusion in primary. Our teachers in secondary, now starting with Miss Mavis, who teaches English, Mr. Bertram, who teaches maths, Miss Mary Rose, who teaches English, and Miss Pamela, who also teaches English. And new to the school this year is Miss Mason, who will be teaching English as well. Our teaching assistants in secondary, we have 2. We have Miss Vanessa and Miss Valerie. And then all of these are now new to the primary inclusion team. Miss Clara, Miss Myra, Miss Chantel, Miss Anielle, Miss Hammerly, and Miss Conchita. And as I mentioned before, they've all got various roles, specialising in different aspects of inclusion within the primary department. So lots of new faces, very exciting team to be working with this year.
These are some of the different ways we use assessment at ISS in terms of inclusion. So we'll always use different assessments depending on the specific situation. The CAT4 test is something that's used for all students in certain year groups. So in years 3, 5, 7, 10 and 13. All students will do a CAT4 test. There is a cost which is paid for by parents, but this test reveals any hidden potential or any learning needs by assessing the young people's reasoning skills. These are actually happening next week. They happen in school, and then we share the results with all staff and with parents, so that we can see where they're at and what their needs are. For students doing exams, some will need some access arrangements put into place. So these have to be applied quite a bit before they sit the exam. The CAT4 results can be used as a good indicator, and then each of the exam boards have their own tests and their own application process, which we coordinate as a school. And then we'll do specific screening if there's needs that are emerging, such as dyslexia, speech and language, reading, processing skills, or memory. And these are not diagnoses as such, but they do give us a really good idea of if any of these conditions might be prominent and affecting learning, and then we'll know some of the strategies we can use to try and help the learners overcome whatever those needs are. So this next section just explains English as an additional language, or EAL. So EAL students are those learners whose first language is not English. And obviously at ISS, that's the vast majority of our students. A lot of our students' first language is Creole. So they are coming to school and learning in English, which is not their first language. We also have students from all over the world that come with a different understanding and a different level of English. So we do have a lot of students at ISS who would be classed as EAL. As I said, each individual will have their specific strengths and areas to work on. And our aim for all of those young people is to ensure that they can become bilingual learners, so that they are learning in English and they're also able to speak their first language. And by learning English and understanding English, they can access all areas of the curriculum. If English isn't there when they first join ISS, we try and do some intensive work early on so that they can understand English, they can achieve in lots of different subjects, and they can understand what's going on, and they can socialise, which is really important. And this year, Miss Mavis in secondary is trialling a GCSE, an international GCSE, in EAL, which is run by Cambridge, for the first time next summer. So we will monitor that, we will get the results, and we'll speak to the young people and see if that's a good outcome for the young people that maybe join us late or in Key Stage 4, that for whom an English GCSE would be very difficult to achieve because they haven't got that deep understanding of English when they get to their exams.
Okay, so I've already mentioned some of these, but I'll talk you through the inclusion team's priorities for this coming year. So as I've mentioned, all staff had some training last week on challenging behaviour. That's one of our aims, our whole school aims for this year. We've also got a new assessment tool to try and understand behaviour and where it's coming from. So we're hoping to reduce the amount of challenging behaviour. We want to continue to improve the use of other diagnostic testing and other screening tools that we have, and make sure that the interventions that follow on are therefore targeted. We want to continue and extend the work we do with outside agencies to develop and improve our inclusive provision. Health-wise, we want to introduce the national development tests again to ISS as part of, again, our whole school target of being a healthy school. And finally, as I've mentioned, introduce new software to the students so that students can use, that's going to improve their access arrangements in exams and in other assessments. Okay, the final slide is just about communication and who you should contact within the inclusion team. The school handbook this year has an inclusion section, so there's lots more information in there about how we're an inclusive school and what we do to support our young people. Messages and information will be sent on ISAMs at times directly to families. The form or the class tutor is your first point of contact for any general concerns. If you've got specific concerns or some updates on your young person's needs, then Miss Mary is your point of contact for primary, and myself is the contact for secondary. If it's health issues that you want to discuss or you need some advice with, then please contact our head nurse, Miss Natalie. And finally, if it's more to do with counselling support or child protection issue, then please contact Miss Kate in primary or Miss Myrna in secondary. We're a very approachable team. We work a lot. We all work a lot with families for different reasons. So please do contact us if you need advice or if there's any information that you think would help us in our work. Thank you for listening. I wish you all the best, and I'll see you soon.